The cold autumn air always seemed to bite a little harder on Hollow Street. I was just settling in for the night, scrolling through my phone, when it buzzed with an unknown number. Normally, I'd ignore it, but something compelled me to answer. A wave of static crackled in my ear, then a voice, distorted and panicked, but disturbingly familiar. It was my own voice. "Don't open the door," it rasped. "No matter what you hear, don't open it." The line went dead. My heart hammered against my ribs. Was it a prank, a sick joke? But the fear in that voice, my voice, it felt real. Just then, a frantic knocking echoed through my small apartment. "Let me in, please, open up." It was a woman's voice, laced with terror. It sounded like Mrs. Gable from next door. I froze, my hand hovering over the doorknob. The voice on the phone had been clear. "Don't open the door. The knocking grew more desperate, accompanied by gut-wrenching sobs. "He's coming. Please." My mind was a whirlwind. This was Hollow Street. Strange things were the norm, but this felt different, more personal. I backed away from the door, my knuckles white as I gripped my phone. The knocking suddenly stopped. An unnerving silence fell over the hallway, heavier and more menacing than the noise it replaced. I crept to the peephole, my breath catching in my throat. The hallway was empty. There was no sign of Mrs. Gable, no sign of anyone. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. The rest of the night was sleepless. I sat on my couch, staring at the door, jumping at every creak and groan of the old building. The next morning, I tried to convince myself it was all a vivid nightmare, a product of stress and an overactive imagination. But when I saw Mrs. Gable's apartment, the door slightly ajar, a knot of dread tightened in my stomach. I called out her name. No answer. I pushed the door open. The apartment was pristine, almost sterile, except for a single, muddy footprint near the entrance. It looked fresh, and on her coffee table, a rotary phone, the kind you only see in old movies, sat unplugged. Its receiver was off the hook. A shiver traced its way down my spine. There was no sign of a struggle, nothing to suggest a break-in. It was just empty, as if she'd simply been erased. Later that day, as I was trying to distract myself with work, my phone rang again. Same unknown number. I answered immediately. "Did you listen?" My own frantic voice asked, the static less intense this time. "Good. You're learning. They can mimic voices, sounds, anything to get you to open the door." My blood ran cold. "Who are they?" I whispered, my voice trembling. "What happened to Mrs. Gable?" A distorted sigh crackled through the speaker. "She opened the door. You can't trust what you hear on this street. Only what you see. And sometimes, not even that. Look for the lamppost with the flickering light at the end of the block. Underneath it, you'll find a loose cobblestone. What you need is there. Be careful. They're watching." The call ended. My mind raced. This was insane. I was taking instructions from a mysterious version of myself on the phone, about shadowy figures and a neighbor who had disappeared. Every rational part of my brain screamed at me to pack a bag, leave Hollow Street, and never look back. But curiosity, and a terrifying sense of responsibility, kept me rooted. I had to know what was happening. I had to understand what happened to Mrs. Gable. Waiting for the sun to dip below the horizon, I felt like a character in a spy movie, except the stakes felt horrifyingly real. The streetlights flickered on one by one, their orange glow casting long, dancing shadows. I spotted it instantly, the last lamppost on the block, its light sputtering erratically, like a dying breath. The street was eerily quiet as I made my way to the flickering lamp. Every rustle of leaves, every distant siren, sent a jolt of paranoia through me. I felt a dozen unseen eyes tracking my every move. Kneeling down, I ran my hands over the cobblestones at the base of the post. One of them shifted slightly under my touch. My heart pounded as I pried it loose. Beneath it was a small, hollowed-out space. Inside lay a tarnished silver key and a small, leather-bound journal. The journal's pages were filled with frantic, spidery handwriting. It was a log, detailing strange occurrences on Hollow Street going back decades. It spoke of the echoes, owl entities that mimic sounds and voices to lure residents out of their homes. It described how they fed on fear and confusion, slowly erasing people from existence, leaving nothing but an empty space and a faint memory. As I read, a name caught my eye, circled in red ink: Arthur Finch. He was the building's original architect, a man rumored to have dabbled in strange, esoteric practices before he vanished without a trace in the 1950s. The journal claimed he didn't just build the apartments, he built a prison for the echoes. And he'd created a failsafe, a silence room, hidden somewhere within the building, protected by a special lock. My eyes darted to the silver key in my hand. Could this be it? Was this the key to Finch's hidden room? The journal mentioned that the echoes were growing stronger, their influence spreading beyond simple mimicry. They were starting to manipulate technology, to project themselves through phone lines. My phone calls weren't from another dimension or the future. They were from *me*, a version of me that the echoes were trying to create, to manipulate, to use as another lure. My phone rang again, the same unknown number. I hesitated, the journal's warning screaming in my head. I finally answered, but this time I said nothing. The voice on the other end was my own, but it was different. It was calm, reassuring. "It's all right," it said smoothly. "You found the journal. You're safe now. Just bring the key back to your apartment. I'll explain everything." The voice was perfect, soothing, everything I wanted to hear. But I knew it was a lie. The journal was clear. They adapt. They learn. They were no longer just using panic. They were using comfort as a weapon. "I know you're scared," the voice continued, its tone dripping with false sympathy. "But I'm you. I want to help." I clicked the phone off, my hand shaking. They knew I had the key. They wanted it, back in my apartment. I triple-checked the lock on my door. The journal was my only guide now. It described a series of symbols hidden throughout the building, a map leading to the silence room. Arthur Finch had designed it as a puzzle for anyone clever enough or desperate enough to solve it. He believed that within that room lay the means to weaken the echoes, to reinforce the prison he had built. My mission was no longer just about survival, it was about fighting back. The first symbol, according to the journal, was located where water sleeps, the old, disused boiler room in the basement. Armed with the key, the journal, and a flashlight, I headed down into the belly of the building. The air grew cold and damp, the silence thick and oppressive. I knew the echoes were aware of me. I could feel their presence, a low hum of energy in the air, a whisper just at the edge of my hearing. They were waiting, watching, and I was walking right into their territory. But for the first time since that initial phone call, I wasn't just afraid, I was determined. I had to find that room. I had to find the truth behind Hollow Street. Thank you for watching. If you're as hooked on this mystery as I am, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Stay safe out there.